right, hello guys. All right, so we have a few things to talk about this week, but one of the main things I want us to really hone in on and concentrate on is the topic of the week, which is design thinking. We'll get back to that in a moment. First, I want to thank you for your patience last week with the emergency I had with my pet. He unfortunately did not make it. Yeah, I did what I could for him, but it didn't work out. So I thank you for your patience and your understanding. Our animals are we have no interest in kids, so like none. So our animals are like our little babies. So yeah, I just appreciate that a great deal. All right, moving on. So today we are talking about design thinking, and inside of our Canvas module, I was already on it, our lecture for the week, there are a number of different videos from people who are so smart. This man here, David Kelly, is like one of my idols. I think he's awesome. He created the D School at Stanford, or the design school at Stanford, and he is honestly contributed so much, not just to design, but to creative thinking in general. He's just so smart, and I think he's awesome. So yeah, this video with David Kelly, and then this person really breaks down the different parts and phases of any type of design process. All of the things that she's referring to, they don't just refer to creative design processes that end in a visual communication end result. The things that she talks about really apply to different fields of creating across the board. So I want you guys to make sure, if you haven't already, watch all of these videos, and then the last video at the end is kind of like my summation of all the things that they talked about, key takeaways that I want you guys to have in mind, right? So yeah, again, watch all of these things. This applies to you guys online as well. You guys online should be watching the videos anyway, because that's your content. All right, so we're going to take a more kind of hands-on approach to it today. With me going through your design process project and your City of Olalla project, I can see some key places where there's concepts and ideas that I really want to reinforce with all of you and talk about that a bit more, and that also applies to you guys online as well. Some of the main weak points that I'm seeing along the way, it's kind of very similar for most of you. So I want to go through, talk about those things, reinforce it. This week, your visual research and thumbnails are due for our current project, and this one's a hard one. It really is. I saved this project for this point in the semester for a reason, because it's not easy to make something good. You can all make something, but to make something that really works well for what the goal is, for what you're trying to communicate, for whatever your words are. Everyone in the room, you have your words, right? So I saw one, no, it's fine. You need to get them though. And for this particular project, another reason why I like it a lot is because you really need to rely on your ability to work your way through coming up with your ideas. Go for it.
For the timeline, the final version is due next week.
Yeah, the final version is due next week. So this week is your thumbnails and your visual research. And I think this is a great point to throw a wrench in wherever you are, right? Not a wrench as in throw you off track. I know that's how that's typically meant, but a wrench as in let's tighten up some screws and make sure that we're all good. I made that up on the fly just now, and I think it worked out in the way that I wanted it to. Perfect, right? So I'm gonna start by asking a question. So with me, like working with the design program here at SRJC and like running the program for the last 7 years and making changes and all this other stuff to like get us in a good direction for what the industry wants out of people when they leave this place, like what working environments want out of people in terms of like, yeah, I will hire you to come and do things and I'll give you money for that. I've spent a lot of time talking to creative directors, like principals at design firms, the folks that are basically the ones in charge of saying, hey, yeah, I make the final call, I want to hire this person. So I'm going to start off by throwing this question out to you. What do you think the number one thing is, like almost across the board, that these folks tell me they want out of a person that they're looking for? Like the number one skill, they're like, hey, make sure your students have this thing when they leave.
Time management.
Time management, okay. Just throw out whatever your guesses are. Go for it.
Critical thinking.
Critical thinking, okay. What else do you guys think? Any other thoughts out there?
Communication.
Communication. Keep it flowing. Anything else? Consistency, nice.
Very creative.
Very creative, okay. Other thoughts? Going once? Going twice? All right. So across the board, a lot of the things that you guys just said, actually all of the things that you guys just said are critical skills that you need for sure. But across the board, the number one thing that they always say, like, this is what I'm looking for a person to be able to do, is think critically. Like, that's what they want. Some of the folks that I've talked to, for instance, how many of you have heard of The Engine is Red? So The Engine is Red is like Santa Rosa's like top design firm here in the city. And their work is phenomenal, like phenomenal. And they do a really good job working with big name clients. And their studio is also like super rad. It's like, if I were like feet on the ground working in a design studio, I would be pretty stoked to walk into that space every day. It's pretty cool looking. And like, point blank, the creative director there told me, he was like, you know, if I have two portfolios in front of me, and one of the portfolios has really stellar work, like flawless, really stellar work, and the other portfolio has work that's okay, but the person with the okay portfolio knows how to creatively think their way through a design problem better than the other person, I'm gonna hire the one with the okay portfolio every time. Right? So that just goes like to show, and across the board, I've heard similar sentiments from other principals at other design firms. So it goes to show you just how important your ability to think your way through a design problem is. And that's a big part of the reason why I emphasize working your way through the process as much as I do, because it's not just about like completing the individual steps. It's about, one, harnessing as much creativity out of yourself as possible. And like I said this before, that like creativity, or I believe I said this before, creativity is not like an inborn thing. It's not like you wake up and you have like this cup inside of you marked creativity, and however much like fluid is in that creativity cup is how much you get. That almost went off the rails. That's not how it works. Creativity is almost like this outer being that exists outside of us. And in different ways, we can reach in and pull out parts of it so that we can use it to whatever means we need to. But in order to be able to reach in there and pull those individual parts out, or pull as much of that creativity that's outside of you, inside of you, like you have to try, honestly. And the process that I've given you, it's like the one that it started when I was in undergrad, and I sat there and like, I don't know, I don't know how much of like my actual personality comes across in this room, but I'm a pretty defiant human being. I can't help it. It's how my personality works. I'm like a why. Why? Why should I do that? I want to know the why. I want to know the reasoning. Like, that's how my brain works. And like, I can't help it. It's who I am. So when I started in undergrad and I sat in my first design classroom, and the professor, who honestly like didn't look that much older than us, was like, we're going to do it this way. I was like, who's going to do it that way? And it took me a while to catch on and be like, okay, fine. Like, I see what's happening here. And she gave us a process, which was her process at the time, right? She's pretty cool. Like, me and her still like, we're like friends today, which is nice. She's a cool human being. But that was like a decade ago, like a long time ago, not to age myself, but like a decade ago. And I took what she gave me over the years and like working, like interning in design environments, working in design environments, and honed it into something that works well for me. And that's what I gave you. Now, the process that I gave you is not the end all be all. I'm not saying that this is the best thing you could use, but it is what has been the best thing for me over a decade of working. And over time, the same way that I evolved it, you'll evolve it into something that works for you, right? But the individual steps that are a part of the process, those are the things that this lady in all of these different videos is touching on. All of those different individual parts. Go for it, Jack.
I was going to say, would you say your design process that you're showing us is pretty universal compared to other people's, or like big designers' design processes?
Okay, so Jack asked if the process that I use is pretty universal or if other designers use their own processes. So the process that I use, it has key steps in it that almost every design process I've come across that I've seen other designers use, they all have those steps. And those main key points are collecting the information about the project. So that's like the harvesting. Research. Some folks, and personally when I am working, I do combine my information research and visual research together into one. I do it differently for you guys because if I tell you to do information and visual research, experience has shown me you're only going to do visual research. You're not going to do the information part. So I separate it for your own benefit. But in like what I've seen, like key traits that exist in all processes is the collecting of information from the person who holds that, the project giver, research, and ideation. And that ideation phase is where your brainstorming and your thumbnails live inside of that process. So it's these main components that exist like in every process that I've seen. And the reason why those three main components are important is because they do really important things for you. The first one, you make sure you understand what you need to do. Research, make sure that you understand the environment, the client, the people you're designing for, and then you have a good well of information to potentially draw ideas from. And then the ideate phase is all about experimentation. And that is like one of the most important parts. Like you take everything you've done already and then you go into the experimentation form, and that is like honestly one of the most important steps to coming up with lots of ideas. And for us, the way that that plays out with the process that I gave you with our thumbnails, your goal is to spit out as many ideas as you can. Some of them need to be stupid, like downright, this is ridiculous. There's no way that this is a good idea. And there's a balance between the two, a balance between, okay, this one maybe has some chops to it. This one, what was I thinking? And having a good balance between that does one really good important thing for you. You can look at the one that's like, that's ridiculous. What was I thinking? But, what about this weird thing here? What if I incorporate this into a different idea? So having that mix of good and bad gives you an opportunity to kind of draw from yourself, the things that are coming out of you. It gives you an opportunity to draw from that and then combine it and combine it and combine it until you hit like, oh, light bulb, there it is. Like that's the eureka moment. And don't get me wrong, there are times where I'll go through my thumbnails and like I'll draw. I have 20, 30, 40, and then I'll look at it and I'm like, oh man, number two has some chops. That happens. Cool. That happens a lot. There's people screaming outside. Yeah. Let's pull our trash can just to make sure. It's just yeah, let's just lock ourselves in here because this is America. Cool. There we go. Locked in. Nice and safe. Yeah, so like in your ideation phase, when you're coming up with ideas, like that's your opportunity to like have fun. Let it be playful. And I know like school is weird. Like personally, my personal beliefs about school, I think it's super important, but I hate that this is a grade-based system. Like I do. I wish schools were not grade-based. I know that may sound crazy because it's like, well, how well do you know? Like, how do you know if you're doing well? Like, improvement is how you see you're doing well. Like, for each of you, like, how many of you are sitting there like, oh, yeah, I want to fail. I want to do poorly in this class. Anybody feeling that way? Exactly, right? But the problem with that system is that in order to, like, really grow and get good ideas, you gotta fail. Like, it's important to make crap and, like, take risks. I had an office hour meeting with a student who is not in this room. And like, we looked at what he made and I was like, this is bad, but it's so creative and like full of risk taking, and that's awesome. And I feel like that's like a sentence I've maybe said to someone in this room before too. And like, the goal is like, yeah, you want to walk away from this like career program, like if it is your goal, with a portfolio of things that you can show to someone and they can say, oh yeah, you're past step one, this looks good, tell me more about your brain, you know, like, yes, that's the goal. But right now we're in like intro to graphic design. This is the first class. Like, would it be awesome if you walk away from here with some stuff you can put in your portfolio and be proud? Heck yeah. But what I'd rather you walk away with is like some stuff that's like, that could be better, but I definitely learned how to use my brain a little bit better in this room. Does that make sense? Right? And that's what this week's lecture material is all about. And going back to my soapbox about school, like grades makes it really hard because it kind of turns it into a place where you're like, I need to tick off all those checkbox, and you forget about like, oh, what am I supposed to learn from this checkbox, and what am I supposed to learn from this next checkbox? I'm so grateful that we can be in this room in person. Sorry to the folks online, because it gives us an opportunity to have conversations that are much harder to have in an online space. Like, we have our critiques and we can look at what you made, and then you can tell us why you made those decisions. And critiques are hard. When I was in undergrad, like, we had people that cried, literal tears coming down their face because of like what their end result was and like the feedback that they received. I never cried in undergrad, but I cried once in grad school, and I didn't cry in front of anybody. And not that I'm like, oh, sensitivity, don't do that. I'm an incredibly sensitive human being. I was just like, you effers made me cry. I'm not giving you the satisfaction of doing it in front of your faces. So I held it together. And then once the critique was over, I went and hid in the printmaking room and cried for a minute, collected myself. One of my friends came in and was like, dude, you're okay. I was like, I am okay. I just need to cry and make it look like I'm not crying, and I'll come to the potluck. And that was it, right? So like, I know what the pressures of a critique, I know what it could feel like. And like, but they're really important to like be able to get that kind of honest feedback about, yeah, this is working really well, and this is like, this could be improved, especially if you want to do this long term, because like being in the field working is like way worse in terms of critiques than like being in a space like this. So like later I realized, oh, my professors were preparing us for the day that your boss says, what the is this? Like, did you even read the project description? And you're like, Yes, I did. I went with a different direction, and then you don't cry in front of them. So yeah, it's like all of those are a part of it. So I'm gonna try something with you this week. I'm kind of flying, like, whew, we're gonna see how this works. And one of the other things I want us to do, like whatever process work you have with you for our current project, we're gonna take it out, and I just wanna look at where you are, look at what you have, and give you feedback. And for the folks online, I know that you're not getting that same experience, but you're gonna get the like same type of content and information in terms of like what your individual steps of the process should look like. And the most important thing that I want us to really talk about today is how do you really utilize the steps of the process to your benefit so they can actually help you with your ideas. Across the board, one of the things I saw when I was looking at your thumbnails is that almost all of you had one or two ideas in your thumbnails that were stronger than the idea you decided to go with for your end result. Right? Like across the board, and that's for you guys online as well. Like for the City of Olalla and for the Design Process Project, almost across the board, there was like something in your thumbnails that had more potential than the end result idea you decided to go with, right? So I want us to talk about like how all of those puzzle pieces fit together a bit and make our way through that. Right? So we're going to start with a little experiment. I just honestly made this experiment up like 5 minutes ago, and this will be the first iteration of us trying it. So we'll see how it works. I wasn't going to do it, but then I was like, no, this is like a great example of what I'm saying to you. The idea that you have to be willing to give yourself an opportunity to fail. So in this moment, I'm going to give you guys this experiment. We'll see how it goes. And if it doesn't go well, then I'm being a living example for you in this moment of trying and letting yourself fail if it doesn't work out. Right? Everybody take out a pencil and paper. Or pen and paper, like just something that you can draw with. If you don't have one, there's some paper in the printer, but take it out. Oh, you guys online, you can do this as well along with us. So in your individual bedrooms or living rooms or wherever you are, backyards, in a park, like take out a sheet of paper and a pencil. All right, so I also want you to make sure that whatever paper you're writing on, you don't mind tearing out, because once you're done, we're going to tear it out and you're going to put it up on one of our, we don't need this. We don't need this much today, so I'm going to roll it up and we'll use this projector. And I won't freak out if I can't get it back down. All right. In fact, I could just turn this off right now because... Yeah, the light is shining in my eyes and it's unnecessary pain. All right.
You mean it's your camera lighting?
It is. It is. It makes my mask glow. Just it brings out the undertones.
Brings out the color of the hat.
The undertones in my mask, I guess. All right. All right, so let me see. We're going to keep it simple. I'm just going to ask you to, off the top of your head, I'm going to give you a design scenario, and I just want you to draw a single idea for that design scenario, right? Don't freak out. It could be great. It could be horrible. None of that matters. Go for it.
Want us to cover the whole page or leave room for a couple of these?
No, you're just drawing one.
Okay. So
Yeah. You don't have to make it as big as the page. The bigger you draw something, the longer it takes. But also, please don't draw it like the size of a penny. Give yourself some opportunity there, right? So I'm going to make it up right now. Let's see, a singular design concept. And you're drawing a logo for this. I want to use something that's recognizable so that there is some information in your head about this thing that you're designing. I don't want it to pick a topic that you may know absolutely nothing about, but I also don't want to pick something where you're like, oh yeah, I can nail that out the park. I won't pick cats or something. Because if you have a cat in this room, you probably have an obsessive amount of information about them in your head. Let me see. You are designing a logo for a all right, let's do it. You're designing a logo for a furniture company. The name of the company, I'll give it a name. It is So in the video yesterday, the camera kept cutting off. So the rest of the information you need for this mini project, you're designing a logo for a furniture company called True Build. I want you guys to take 5 minutes to work on your potential design for this. That's all the information I'm giving you. That's all the information that the folks in my in-person class received. You're designing a logo for a furniture company called True Build. Draw for 5 minutes and that's it. All right, stop and set a timer, and then when you're done with your 5 minutes, continue playing the next part of the video. These are the different ideas, and we're not going to fully attribute. I'll decide in the moment. I am making this up as we go. Right now, the thought process is that I'm not going to say this one belongs to this person, though it does feel like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 3, 6, 9, 11, 12. Okay, perfect. Yeah, everyone made one. Awesome. All right, so I want us to look at these, and I'm going to pick them out one at a time. I want you to keep in mind that we are making a what? What is this logo supposed to be?
Furniture company.
A logo for a furniture company, right? So let's start with this guy right here. Right? Oh, did everyone walk around and look at them? Like get a good look at them? I want you guys to get a good look at them. Really good look at them.
Sorry.
Yeah, get a really good look at each of them that we see. Okay. Oh, we got a new one. Awesome. All right. All right, so we're going to start with this one first. So, blind reacting. Oops. I'm going to put this down so we don't have any of you guys on camera, and I'll edit that out for sure. All right, so blind reacting. What do you think this what do you think this is meant to represent? Like what type of company?
Definitely building.
Construction, building. Any other thoughts? I see construction as well. What says construction to you guys?
The little man doing construction.
The little man doing construction, okay.
Minecraft.
Say it again.
Looks like a Minecraft thing or something.
It looks like Minecraft, right? Other thoughts?
It's 3D.
It's 3D, right? I see construction from the little man doing construction, and from like there's like I think that's a nail that's like popping up at the top, and just like construction materials. We have boards, we have, yeah, I see construction for sure, right? How about this one? Hardware? Other thoughts? Hardware, general consensus there? Okay, what makes you guys think hardware?
Screws.
The screw? Yeah, when I look at it, I think hardware company. That's the first thing that comes to mind for me as well. Because I see the screw. Now, there are some good things happening here, the same way that there's good things happening in our TB down there. Like using the construction materials, the wood to make the letter forms. Like that's a good thought process. Using the screw to become the T, that's a good thought process, right? Let's see. So we have a few that are also like, let's see, like this one. What do you think?
Home improvement.
Home improvement, okay.
Maybe real estate.
Real estate, home improvement, we get real estate. Any other thoughts? Right? So same. For this one, I thought home improvement, I thought of like a contractor, because like a construction company has like a logo that's like a little less refined, but a contractor, they always have logos that are a bit cleaner, a bit sleeker, because they're like, we are a contractor, like we're gonna get you to a sleek finished end result, is like the image you're trying to like portray, right? Let's go with this one. This one has a bed in it. So what do you get when you look at this? What do you think this company makes or is?
Could be mattress firm.
Could be mattress firm. Mattress firm specific. Okay, cool. Cool. I like it. I'm with you. What do you guys think?
Yeah, just like bedroom furniture company.
Bedroom
It
furniture?
does hit furniture.
Yeah, we're getting
Yeah.
closer, right? We have furniture in the mix, right? But like specifically, like I think sleepwear as well, like sleep items, maybe beds, maybe mattresses, maybe specifically mattress firm, possibly that works.
Tempur-Pedic, yeah.
Go for it.
I think the True Build saves it from like the sleepy side more
Yeah.
to the furniture side
Mhm.
though, because True Build doesn't
Right.
sound like a sleep brand at all.
Yeah, exactly. So maybe they're building custom beds, possibly. So we're getting closer to the furniture side of things, right? Let's see, another one that has furniture in it. This one does too. Some furniture. What do we think?
Office chair company.
Office chair company. This hits on what my original thing I was gonna say was like an office chair company. I was like, no, that's too specific. it'll make it too easy. Yeah. Any other thoughts? So we're in the furniture realm again because there's some furniture in it, right? There's like office chairs, so we're getting closer, right? So with all of these that we have here, oh, this one gets a bit closer. Let's see. So this one, what do you think they do?
Honestly, furniture.
Furniture? Yeah.
Yeah, maybe home decor.
Home decor? Yeah. Home decor is what I think as well.
Yeah, I almost imagined like an IKEA when I saw that one.
Uh-huh, exactly. That's exactly where my brain went. So why? Why IKEA? Why home decor? I understand why furniture, because there's furniture in it. There's one specific thing here that led me in a different direction.
It was like the lamp, and then I guess the D is like it has like something on top of it. I'm not sure if it's on like the shelf or.
It's a
whatever it
plant.
is.
It's like a little plant in a pot. Yeah. So this one was getting very close to like a furniture making company, but the lampshade and then the flower over the D made me think home decor in general, because like a furniture making company probably isn't going to make you like flower in a pot for your items, right? So the next question I want to ask before I let you take away your items here, there was information that you should have known, that you needed to know in order to do this well. Jack kicked it off by asking, I forgot what Jack asked, but he showed like, oh, I want more information. Let me ask a question here, right? So like, what was the information you would have liked to know going into this? Go for it.
Like, if there's a specific type of furniture they specialize in, like if they only do like contemporary, or if like we're a country living style.
Okay. So like, what type of furniture does this company make? Right. Yeah. Other things you would have liked to know going into this? Go for it.
Maybe just the store or company's aesthetic itself.
Okay, great question. What's the aesthetic of your business, right? There's a wide range. It could be rustic, like outdoor furniture. It could be like Scandinavian. It could be modern furniture stylings. It could be contemporary. Like there's so antique, there's so many possibilities, right? Yeah. What's other things you wish you would have known? Go for it, Dan.
How much am I getting paid?
How much are you getting paid? Yeah. In a real world setting, that is a very important question, because knowing how much you're getting paid lets you know how much time you can allocate to making this thing for them, right? I saw another hand. Was it?
Speaking of money, like what, like, how expensive is the stuff you sell? Like, is it more of a
Mm.
cheaper range, or is this like an expensive thing?
Yeah. So that's an important question that's multi-layered. Asking the question of how much do these things cost? Are they high end? Or are they like mid-range, lower end? That's an important question, but what you're really asking is for information about their audience, right? When you're asking how much does this thing cost, you're asking like, who are the people that are going to buy these things that can, like, that this is in their price range? A person that's buying like a $10,000 ottoman is a very different audience from a person who's like, I'm gonna get this $50 ottoman from IKEA because it looks just cool enough and it's $50, right? So you're not just asking like, how much do these things cost? You're asking, who's your audience? Like, who's gonna buy this? And that's important. Why is that important? We've talked about it before. Like knowing as much as you can about who you're making this for. Why is that important? Go for it.
Just because, like, if you make a logo that doesn't fit that group's or that market's interest, like,
Mhm.
it might not catch them. Like a lot of like high-end designer brands, their logos are all very sleek,
Yeah.
minimal, and clean.
Yeah.
And I feel like if you did something wonky and bright,
Yeah.
it might not stick in that market at all.
Right, like understanding who your audience is. Now, for one of these options, the idea of IKEA came up, right? And if we were to, flying by the seat of my pants, let's see how it goes. If we were to look at the IKEA logo, for instance,
It's like a big eye.
right? If we look at this IKEA logo, right? Does that say furniture in any way? Does that say like home decor in any way, shape, or form? No? What does it say to you when you look at it? What do you think? It says a few keywords to me. This is Walmart, okay? No, that's completely valid. Perfect. This is Walmart. What are your other thoughts? What do you see? Any other thoughts?
And there's nothing too crazy happening there. It's kind of like normal font, two simple colors.
Yeah, simple, right? Pretty generic, right? Is what I'm getting from what you're saying. Would that be accurate? Like pretty generic, simple, right? Any other thoughts on what you see there? So looking at this, it's all the things that you guys just said. The idea of Walmart, the idea of simple, the idea of generic. Now, don't get me wrong, I freaking love IKEA. I love the Scandinavian aesthetic. I love that it's cheap. I'm a fan of all of those things about IKEA. And like, I think their things last longer than folks say that they do. Whatever, I like them. But looking at their logo is not screaming, we are a furniture store. Because they're not just a furniture store, right? They have like everything from food to kitchen items. They kind of are the Walmart of the furniture world, right? Like you go in there and there's a little bit of everything. You're gonna find furniture for every room in your house. And so continuing with what I was saying here, I was saying that looking at the IKEA logo, it doesn't just say furniture because it isn't just a furniture store. They sell all kinds of things like kitchenware, plants, like all kinds of things are sold at IKEA. But looking at the logo, it is giving a specific message. This idea of quick, simple, easy, kind of like we have a brand, but we're also like, we can be anything you want us to be, like this very like blank slate type of appearance. And there is a bit of personality in it. One of my students in the in-person class said that, oh, it's like the colors of the Swedish flag. So bringing in potentially some of that like national pride for like their country home of origin. But overall, it's like a very simple, very plain logo. And then I go in to talk about our Words Made visual project. And for this particular example with the IKEA logo, someone had to take ideas that weren't visual at all. They could be, but they had to take the essence of what this company was about, and then make a logo that could represent enough of that information to make the company stakeholders happy, and then also to be like a good representation, a good face of this company as its logo. And with our Words Made Visual project, you are essentially doing that same thing, but it's really, really difficult. It's really difficult to take simple words and then turn them into an ideal graphic to represent that, right? And in order to do that, you have to rely on the idea of process, to be able to like work your way through those steps and figure out, how do I execute this well? How do I get to a solution that is going to work well for what I need to communicate? All right, let's continue with the video. Words mean, like, represent those 3 words in a visual form, right? Looking at this IKEA logo, the idea of simplicity, the idea of like, even though that's kind of a farce, if you've ever tried to put together IKEA furniture, it's, yeah, I'm gonna keep this story to myself. But like the idea of simplicity, boldness, reliability, like trying to make all of those like words, fairly complicated words, into a visual image that someone can walk away from with. That's what you're doing with this Making Words visual project. You're taking words, and you don't have to keep it simple like IKEA. You can do as much as you possibly want to on that canvas to try to convey the meaning of those words to us when we look at your finished results next week. But in order to be able to do that, like this project here that we just did, you got to have all the information, and you need to get that information from wherever you can, right? This project is also like heavily self-reliant on your own brains. Like, you have your words that you need to like convey visually, but you have to figure out like the same way that you needed to know what type of furniture does this company make. You need to know what types of ways can I represent this word? What types of meanings has it had across history? Like, what are good ways that I can take this information and try to turn it into a visual form? And then you go through all the different iterations of what's possible. This experiment also lets you see all the different iterations of what could be possible. The different things that other people thought of trying to convey the exact same information you were trying to convey, right? And some of them get closer, like this example here, where we had, like, some of the examples get closer, where we're like, oh, that's saying furniture store, but there's still some loops in there that make me go in a direction that's not quite the direction I need to go in. And then some of them, while like really curious and fun to look at, completely say something off the mark of what you're trying to communicate, right? And in your individual thumbnails as a person, when you're doing your thumbnails for your project, it should be the same way. You should have some stuff that you're like, yeah, that's not saying what I needed to say. Some that are like, yeah, that's pretty close to what I needed to say. And then others where you're like, yeah, I think that one might have some teeth to it. Let me see what I can do with it. Does that make sense? Right? All right, go. Oh, grab your things. If you want them, if you don't, I can recycle them, but go for it. Grab it. Take it to your desk. How long have I been talking to you? All right, I've been talking to you for about an hour. So let's take a quick break. I've been talking to you for about an hour, and come back and we'll go into the next part of this conversation.
You can get a replacement.
All right, guys, so let's get back into it. So the next thing that I want to talk about, we're going to talk about the idea of layouts and composition, because that's a big part of what this new assignment is about. But before we get there, I want to talk about the individual parts of the process that you guys are doing, and like, how can you actually really use them to your benefit? And the reason why I feel like talking about layout and composition and then going through talking about the individual parts of the process they kind of have a little bit of crossover, because oftentimes, like the different principles that go along with layout design, someone will be like, yeah, I'm aware of that idea, but they don't really know how to take that and put it into like factual practice and like turn it into something, aka use it to their benefit. So the process is like busy work if you don't use it for your benefit. And like that's the important key of it, right? The information research, well, let's even start with the harvesting. So I just had you guys do this thing for TrueBuild. So furniture company, I looked around the room, I saw a bunch of chairs. I was gonna say office chairs, and I was like, nope, furniture. And then TrueBuild came from that sign. Future and build. I was like, oh, TrueBuild, cool, let's go with that, right? And that's all you had. That's all the information you had going into trying to make this logo, and it clearly wasn't enough. All of you, many of you expressed like other information that would have been helpful to have, and the things that you expressed were 100% valid. How can you draw a logo for a furniture company if you don't even know what kind of furniture they make? There's so many types of furniture that a company could make, right? Is it a retail store? Is it a home decor store? You know, like having those answers. So starting with harvesting, as we call it, or just information gathering in general. In the UX world, it's called discovery sometimes, where you're like discovering everything you can about the topic, but discovery also covers like all kinds of other aspects of information gathering. And this was like a hands-on example of the difference having more information could make. Even like with the questions that you heard other people asking, do you think you would have potentially made different decisions in that, just talking singular drawing you did? Do you think you would have made different decisions in that singular drawing that you did based on some of the things that folks said about what they saw here, or based on the answers to those questions that folks were like, oh, like I wish I would have known this or that, right? What do you guys think? Yeah, right? So that's why harvesting is important. You want to make sure that you're getting as much information as you can about the thing that you have to make, because it can make the difference between like vaguely, this is what you're making, and really specific, like these are some really important things I have to take into consideration. What is the aesthetic of the company? Are these high-end items? Do you sell high-end items or low-end items? Is this a department store? Like having those answers could make a world of difference. And that's how your harvesting of information works. It's not just, oh, let me ask all these questions and sit it to the side. It's let me look back on this and see what I know about this topic, what I've learned about this topic, and make sure I'm like using this to guide my decisions as I go along. Does that make sense? Right? Every part of the process is meant for you to go in and revisit it and use it in whatever way you can to your benefit, right? The next part are information research. This part like gives people pause all the time. And the one thing that I saw a few people doing that is honestly more work for you is like writing your information research down. I've said it a few different times. I'm not sure if it's going to stick this go round, but I really hope it does. You don't have to write down the information research yourself. You don't have to summarize it. Like you are literally like, say I was working on, all right. So say I was like working on a logo for, I'm just gonna stick to, I'm working on a logo for someone who breeds Uromastyx, right? So like my information research would be, run letter, I'm the worst typer in the world. Uromastyx, let's just do this, Uromastyx lizards. These are my favorite kind of lizards, by the way. Just putting that out there. But so I may come here, I may go to this wiki page, and my information research is like literally as simple. What? Oh, okay. So, okay, 1 second. Create. I never use Microsoft Word, so I'm a little rusty there. All right, so like it may be as simple as I'm like, oh, people eat uromastics. That's interesting. So then, is that a Bible verse? It is. Okay, I'm gonna see what that's about later. So I just copied this information. I come over to this document and I added. Now this just called by interest, this Bible verse, and I'm like, why? What are they referring to in Leviticus? I want to check that out. So then, like, I may go off on a tangent and like open this in another tab so that I can come check out what they're talking about there a little bit later, and then I'll keep going. And I'm like, oh, uromastics in captivity. Okay, cool, this could be interesting. Copy, bring this over to this document, paste it off, and then I'm like, oh, I want to make sure I remember what this is about. So then I may add captive to this. I may add captive here and like make it bold, maybe a little bit bigger so that it catches my attention later. And then I'll go through and then like maybe I may search something like location and see what comes up. And I'm like, oh, cool, Northeast Africa, Middle East. Okay, this is interesting. So I'll grab this and then come over to my Word document, paste it in, and I may add like location here so that I can remember like what this is about. And I may make it a little bit bigger. And then I may also be like, oh, this part was extra interesting to me. So I'm gonna go ahead and highlight it so I can remember like that's specifically why I collected this information, right? So like that's how simple information research can be. You don't have to like read a bunch of stuff and write it down in your own summary. Like you're literally just going through the process of finding information that revolves around the topic. In this case, like we're sticking to logos at simple right now. Like I'm making a logo for a breeder of uromastics. So I'm learning as much, collecting as much information as I can about that topic, right? But it doesn't stop here. So let's suppose like this document is like, we're just gonna pretend like this document is like, I don't know, a few pages long. How many pages are there? So it's like, we'll say it's like 7 pages long. I say 10 pages is like a good place to start with this, right? So I have this 10 pages of information about uromastics, and now it's time for me to go into my brainstorming, right? And there may be stuff here that popped up that I'm like, oh, maybe I'll add this into like my brainstorming. Like right here, it says that it's from Northwest Africa or Northeast Africa or Iran. So maybe I'm like, okay, I'll add like Iran to my like brainstorming and see what comes up when I'm doing all of that, right? And also from the standpoint of my information research, I'm like, I don't know enough about Northeast Africa or Iran, and there may be information there that can really help me come up with a nuanced idea. So I would research Northeast Africa and Iran and add that to my information research, right? So we have this, we'll have it on pause. We'll come back to that in a moment. We're moving into our brainstorming. And with our brainstorming, I've taught you guys the method I like a lot, mind mapping. I told you why I like it, because it goes off the rails. I like it because it's kind of defiant like I am. No matter how hard you try to keep it on track, you're gonna get some weird words in there. So you just kind of like gotta relax and let it do its thing and let all the weird words pop in. And like later on, you'll do something with it, and we'll talk about that in a moment. And your information research may help you inform that, but it may not. Like it doesn't, there's no hard and fast rule that says you have to tie those two things together. Where this in your brainstorming really starts to pay off is when you get to your visual research, right? So in my information research here, so naturally I'm designing a logo for someone who breeds uromastics. So right out the gate, I'm going to want to do visual research on uromastics and pull as many images of those as possible. I'm not going to make you look at a bunch of images of uromastics, though I love them and I would love to show you all how cool they are. Let's do it. Why not? Why not? You might as well. They're so cool. All right. right, so I would start here and pull a lot of images of Uromastyx, right? These are my favorite lizards. All of these different colors are from different areas, and they're all different species. Like this guy is a Geri, this guy is an ornate, that guy's also a Geri, this guy is a Flaviflacciata. My favorite breeds are this guy and this guy. And I don't see any Yemenensis, which is my other favorite breed. But yeah, this is what they look like. So I would pull a bunch of different images of, oh, this guy's a Thomasii. I would pull a bunch of different, oh, this is a Philippi. I would pull a bunch of different images of these to start, right? They're cool. They have spiny tails. They have all of these different features that I want to know about. But I'm like, okay, so in my information research, Iran also came up. So maybe I will search Iran and then see what imagery comes up. And then when I'm looking at this imagery, if I didn't already realize it through my research, I would find out that right now and historically, Iran is in turmoil right now. And so I would do research into that, learn about what's happening like culturally in the area so I can make sure I'm representing an animal from this area, and the cultures and the things that are happening in that area is culturally relevant, potentially to the design decisions that I'm going to make, right? We had a design one week with a tiki mask, and we're like, oh, do you know the history or the thoughts behind that? Like, having that information is important to your overall design that you're trying to make, right? So I would go through and I would pull imagery, I would pull content and pull it into my visual research, right? So on and so forth. So at this point, we're weaving, go away. Did I try to close you? Okay, so right here, we're weaving some of the things that we pulled from our from our information research and using it in our visual research. There's things about the Uromastic melanensis, like are the Mali Uromastic. I'm like, oh, what is that? I don't know what that is. I do know what it is, but I don't know what that is. Let me research that visually and see what that is, right? Pulling bits and pieces here and like holding on to them in your like little database of images. And then with your brainstorming, I'm not going to do a mind map right now, but we do our mind maps. There's all these words on there. We highlight some of them, right? So then you want to pull some of that into your visual research. It's probably not going to make sense to you in the moment. You're going to be like, I'm making a logo about Uromastyx, and my brainstorming has me looking up pictures of tires. Why am I doing this? And a part of your brainstorming that you want to keep in mind, and we mentioned this in the beginning, is that you want to think of those words from multiple different angles. So if your word is tire, you want to be like, oh, tires have treads. Let me look up images of tire treads. Tires are made of rubber. I'm just going to look up images of rubber in general and see what I get. Tires help you travel. They help you locomote. Let me look up images of the idea of locomotion and see what comes up. And you're going to get all of this weird imagery that you don't know what to do with yet, but you want to store it and have it for later. So the point of all of the things I've said so far is that you don't want to do these things and let them just sit there like behind you, like, okay, that step's done, check, that step's done, now let me do the next thing. You want to rely on each of them to help feed into your ability to pull creativity out of the air and pull it into yourself, right? To see it, gather it up, and pull it into yourself, right? All of these individual pieces, those are pieces of creativity that you're pulling in, that you're going to then use and transform into something. So you have your harvesting, you have your information research, you have your visual research. It's time for thumbnails. Now that you're sitting there, it's a very different experience than sitting there inside your head saying, I need to draw a logo for a furniture company called Truebuild, and that's all I have. Let me see what I end up with. Instead, you're like, I need to draw a logo for Truebuild, and I know all of this about this company. I know all of this random information about furniture building, like historically, blah, blah, blah. I know all of this. And I brainstormed, I have all of these random images. Now let me look at all these things and start piecing them together like puzzles and coming up with ideas. A little of this, a little of this, a little of this, an idea. Ooh, I take this from this, a little of this, a little of this, an idea. Ooh, I'll take this and this from these two, a little of this, a little of this, a little of this, an idea. And that's how you can take all of that and then turn it into something. Now, of course, the way I'm saying it right now makes it sound easy. It's not that easy. It, like, once it's time to start taking all of this stuff, like, that's the easy part. The harvesting, the information research, the brainstorming, the visual research, that's all the easy part. The hard part is taking all of that and starting to turn it into something and, like, really fitting it together in a way that can make sense for the concept that for the overall message you're trying to communicate. But it's important that you use all the pieces, because, like, otherwise, what did you do it for, right? It's like, why did you do the information research if you're not going to go and lean on it and let it help you? Why did you do, like, 4 beautiful, some of you made truly beautiful mind maps, if you're not going to go back and, like, actually use the information to your benefit, right? And it honestly, it makes it easier on yourself. Like, it's really hard to sit there, and it's like a lot of pressure when you're like, okay, like, I know a little bit of stuff. Now let me try to, like, come up with an answer. It's like showing up to a math test. I'm going to try this. This is, again, pulling it off the top of my head. It's like showing up to a math test after you've missed class for a whole week and you have no idea how to do any of the concepts, right? You're going to sit there in front of that test and you're going to be like, oh crap, this looks like I don't know what to do with any of this, right? It's similar. It's like you're sitting in front of a white piece of paper and you're like, okay, let me figure out what the answers may be. And you don't have any backing, any supportive, any knowledge supporting you to, like, come up with those answers, right? And you just have to rely on whatever you think you know, or whatever may be in your head already. And you may get some of them right, but chances are you're going to get most of them wrong, right? Me and math aren't friends. Me and math in a classroom aren't friends. Me and math, like, in an application way, are best friends. But that's not how they teach you math in school. So whatever. Does that make sense to you guys? It's really important that this stuff, because, like, I really want this class to be one where we can help you, where I can help you understand, like, just how to, like, really put all of this into use. And especially with this project that we're working on here, because it's hard. It's not an easy project. You're taking random words and you're trying to make them into something visual in a way that, like, I put it up and then, like, Jack's like, oh yeah, I totally see what you're saying there. You're saying noble and kick and liar. What? How did you get that out of that? Like, how am I supposed to make, seriously, how am I supposed to make that into something visual? So at the end of this video, I talked about the importance of actually being able to use your process, like, take the things that we are working on with our process and putting them into action. And I went around and looked at some of the process work from the students in the room, and we talked about different ways that you could apply the parts of your process. So let's say that you are working on a logo about, let's go back to the Uromastic example that I talked about in class. So say you're working on a logo for Uromastics and you pull all this information about them, and in the information you found out that some of them are from Iran. So then when you do your visual research, you pulled information from Iran and you really wanted to pay homage to their country of origin, where they come from. So potentially you bookmark in your mind, like, maybe when I get to the color choices, I will use or work with the color choices from the Iranian flag, or maybe I will, like, work with other, like, culturally relevant symbolism that I found through my visual research looking at Iran. And then maybe with your when you're doing your brainstorming, the word, say the word, like,
America came up in your research and not in your research, in your brainstorming, and you're like, okay, I'm thinking about America in multiple ways. So in a concrete way, like America is a series of connected countries. So America is the United States, America is Mexico, America is like Panama, and it's goes into like leading all the way down into South America, and like South America is also a part of the Americas. So it's a series of all of these interconnected countries on a concrete level. On a concrete level, America has a shape that's also concrete. But then on a abstract or like non-literal level, when we think of America, 9 times out of 10, most people are only going to think of the United States. So there's this idea of exclusion that is connected to the idea of America. And then when you think of America, there's also the idea of like freedom associated to that idea, the idea of power, the idea of like pride potentially. So maybe you're like, oh, I wonder what power looks like visually. So then you take that. You got to that point because of your brainstorming, but because of the way that you thought about America in both a concrete and an abstract way, you're like, oh, power. What does power look like visually? So then you type power into your Google search. And then there's a whole bunch of different types of images that come up, but maybe one comes up that's like a series of overlapping like power line structures. And there's all these like geometric lines. And it makes you think about a Uromastic, and like that particular species of reptile has a tail that's really like spiny. It has a spiny tail. So you're like, oh, this is like the spiny tail of the Uromastic, these geometric lines of these power stations. The Uromastic's tail is really powerful. So then maybe you work on a thumbnail iteration that incorporates like this like super geometric, like powerful structure of these power lines, the power towers that you found, and you make it work in conjunction with what their spiny tails actually look like. So it does take some practice to be able to look at what you have there, and you really have to be willing to do the work. Like that's all that it comes down to, like doing the work, making your way through the individual parts of the process, and just really trying, like doing the work. The process is only going to be as helpful to you as the amount of effort that you put into it. And that's like the frank and honest truth about it. If you don't put effort into it, the chances of it being helpful for you decrease by the day. And if you do the individual steps, but you don't actually use what those individual steps are offering you, then the chances of them being helpful are minimum, because you're not really utilizing the work that you've done. The point of the process isn't just to check off a box. The point of the process is to collect information that could be helpful, and then you put it into use when you need it. Right? So that's what I went on to talk about in the video. And we also talked about how do you create thumbnails for something like a poster? Well, with our last project, City of Olalla, you needed to draw the diamond shape and then draw the content inside of that diamond shape. For this particular poster project, you're creating a poster. So you want to draw your rectangular poster shape, and then you want to work within that space. You are wanting to make sure you understand the boundaries that your composition has to work inside of, and then you're drawing within those boundaries, pulling your bits and pieces of information, deciding how you want to work with these different things. And with the information from last week and the week before about the grid, like working with a grid could really help you organize your workspace. If say you're working with a modular grid and your page is divided into say like 6 rows and like 3 columns, like maybe you're like working heavily with those intersections where the modules come together, and you're placing elements on those intersections, and you have like lines that are working through the space. And then maybe you're like, oh, I want an element that takes up all of these like 4 modules, and you can use the modules to help you understand, one, the entirety of the space that you have to work with, and then how to best navigate all of those different parts, right? So that is a part of what we're talking about. I also decided to give you guys an extra week with this current assignment. So it's not going to be due next week. It's going to be due the week after. I really want you guys to have enough time to make your way, really utilize the process to your benefit. So if at this point you haven't fully utilized the process to your benefit in the ways that we've talked about in this video today, go back. Give yourself a chance. Really focus on each of the steps and the ways that you're using them. We have 2 weeks, and in all honesty, like if this class met 5 days a week, then we would have a project due at the end of every week, because like Monday would be your harvesting of information. Tuesday would be your information research due. Wednesday would be your brainstorming due. Thursday would be your visual research and thumbnails, with your final project being due on Friday. And I say that to say each of the individual steps of the process can take you like a couple of hours to get done. So you could do like this part one day, this part the next day, this part the next day. And between this week and when your project is going to be due, which is pushed back a week, so you get like an extra week, so 2 weeks to get this done. You could easily, even if you haven't fully started yet, work your way through those individual parts of the process and get it done. Right? So don't take this time lightly. Don't waste it. I'm giving you this extra week because I really want you to have an opportunity to do a good job. Right? That's all I got. I'm out of here. Bye, y'all.